Welcome to 911 for video interviews. My name is Pat Laforet, and I'm the author of this program. It's a part of 911 for Job Hunters, which is our homepage and website. It's one of the modules that I was building for this course, but it seemed to me to be a particularly appropriate moment to share this with anybody who would find a need for it, given how popular and how demanding the whole video interview process is going to be. So let me just help you walk through this thing from the technical side and the preparation side. Okay. Now, this will be helpful for you. Almost everybody is going to learn something here. You know, whether you're new to video interviewing, maybe it's part of the normal job interview, maybe it's brand new to you. But I think you're going to, when you're done with understanding all these elements, I think you'll be much more relaxed, much more comfortable, much more confident in doing these kind of interviews, because lots of people would rather do almost anything than be on a video or listen to their own voice. So I've broken it down into 4 areas. What we're going to do is we're going to walk through each of these and help you understand how this builds up to a successful conclusion. All right, the first part is the technical preparation, lighting, sound, and things. Then there's research. I want you to understand how much more helpful your research will be when you're doing a video interview. And right into the interview section, and then the proper follow-up. So as you can see, some parts of this aren't exactly all about video interviewing. It's about how to do a successful interview using this tool called video. So let's start with the technical. When we talk about technical, we talk about finding out what software they're going to use. It all works differently. Do you need to find out if you have to download any snippets, or do you have to download an app? If you were going to use Zoom, for instance, on your phone, you'd have to have the app downloaded before you could click the link. So these are the things that when you get invited to an interview, video interview, you want to ask them what kind of software they're using. Zoom is my favorite by far. It's so easy to use. You can record both sides. It gives you a chance to go and practice if you've got a Zoom account, and you can see all of the elements in how they're going to look to the interviewer using a trial Zoom meeting. Okay. So you can also use an iPad or a smartphone. If you do, you got to understand that though these are wireless devices, and the need for a really good internet signal is paramount, or it gets choppy, it breaks up, it changes size to accommodate the internet speed. So if you're going to use those, then please make sure you're sitting right beside the modem and you've got a really fast thing and nobody else is on it. Also, if you're going to use an iPhone, get a cradle and get it set up so that it's at the right height, so that it's not looking up your nose. And because in the iPhone or any of the smartphones, the video picture is much more a vertical rectangle rather than a square. So these are the things you need to consider. All right. Now, lighting. If you can get natural light, it's perfect. So the ideal situation is when there's a window back there, then your computer and your camera and you, and that the natural light is shining on you, so that all of your color is right, all of the shadows are good on your face, and that it is going to give you the best video image. Now, if you can't do that, you got to be careful, because if you look at overhead lights, if that's the only one that's on, like a fan with a couple of 3 globes, you're going to find shadows down in your face. You may even see some reflections of the light here in my camera from my lighting through my glasses. So the whole lighting, the whole interior lighting is important. But a small lamp that's over on the side near your camera shining on you makes a big difference. It separates you from the background, and it makes a nice blend of color and things. So here's a few examples of poor lighting. You can see, I mean, the woman in the tall picture here has the natural light off to her left. Well, it's giving you a great color on the one side, but it's almost dark on the other side. And the opposite's true of the man in the top right. So it almost looks a little sinister. I mean, that's the last thing you want to look like on a video interview. And the bottom right-hand picture, it's all blended together. There's no separation, and you know, the shadows on her face, and she's too far away from the camera. Okay, so here's some good examples of lighting. Okay, you see the skin tones are good, the color is good. Now the picture on the left, she's a little too close to the camera, but fundamentally I'm trying to illustrate here how lighting makes a huge difference to how the interviewer is going to see you. So when you think about the preparation that you want to do for this, you have to think about what's behind you, and you have to see it as if you are on the other side of the camera. And that's why Zoom's so much fun, because you can go and do a meeting and record it and do a test, and you'll see everything. You'll see your lighting, you'll see your background, you'll see what it all looks like, and you'll be able to hear yourself. And using that kind of a system, you can even practice. Okay, so you want the background to be simple, uncluttered, and it doesn't want to be your kitchen, your bathroom, your backyard, your public library. I really, truly did have a fellow who was doing an interview at a public library. We're about halfway through the conversation, and a woman comes up and taps him on the shoulder. She says, "I think it's my turn now." And he said, "No, ma'am, I've got this till 10:30. Well, guess what? It's in my video. I can't get it out unless I'm going to go and edit that piece away. So you don't want to be in public space. You don't want people walking around behind you. You don't want to be in the coffee shop. And today with the virus here, being at the coffee shop's off the boards anyway. Okay? So it shouldn't distract, okay, the background. So let's look at some poor backgrounds. Okay? Here's the one on the left. The woman's in her bedroom. You can see her bed's there, and all the stuff on the wall. The bottom right actually is in the same room, I discovered later, but it's just it distracts from the conversation. You're looking all around, and it takes away. Now the top right hand image is good, the lighting's really good, but she's in a kitchen. Okay, now you can't see that whole picture. I had to crop it to get it into the slide, but you could see her sink, you could see her cupboards, you can see her sink in the background. So she is the least poor of the backgrounds of the three, but you have to be careful what it all looks like. So here's some good examples. On the left, it's actually, she's using a camera that gives her a focal length capacity that blurs the background. So she's crystal clear and the background's blurry, and it's simple. It's a brick wall and a light. Okay, her lighting's good. Top right, her background is simple. I'm not a big fan of her lighting really, but you know, it's not distracting. And the fella on the bottom right, it looks like he's in an office or he's got his files behind him, and simple. Me, I'd tell him to get rid of the coffee cup and get rid of the multi-tool, but basically, you know, and maybe you want to change that shirt. But this is a conversation about lighting and background. So, you know, there's a whole bunch of things to consider. Meanwhile, okay, there's the technical part. Your eye should be about the top third of the image picture. So you don't want to be halfway down. You don't want to be too far up. It should be heads and shoulders in the image. People make a very common mistake. They'll put the laptop on the table and they'll have the camera looking up at them. And lots of times that's a real up your nose look. Okay, so if you're going to use a laptop, put a box under it, a shoe box or something, so it raises up the camera so that it's looking much more straight at you versus up your nose. Okay, so when you're doing the interview, you should be doing what I'm doing right now, is looking at the camera. You know, when you're doing this and you're talking over here, you're not paying attention. And if you've got a second monitor like I have here, and you're reading a lot of the things on it, and you're trying to give a message to the viewer, it's distracting because clearly you can see that I'm trying to read something. And so in order to prevent those two things, think about this for a second. This camera can only see out here. In front of me, I have my screen with these slides on it that you're looking at now. Well, that screen could hold your notes, your cheat sheets, the links to their website, all kinds of things could be here in front of you to remind you of things you don't want to forget, to remind you about things you want to include, and it's totally invisible to the viewer, whoever's interviewing you. Okay, so here's a few poor images in the camera. Too close. Happy happy, but way too close. The top of my head and the bottom right's cut off, and I'm in my kitchen, and I don't know what's going on in the top right picture, but maybe he's looking at a security camera. But these are the things that you want to make sure of that aren't going to be distracting from whoever's going to interview you. So these ones to me represent some very good images. You can relate. The guy in the middle is a little too close, but maybe he's leaned in to make a point or something. But basically, heads and shoulders, nice, crisp, clean picture, and they're looking right at you. Okay, this is really important. Okay, the noise and ambient noise. Okay. Barking dogs, phone ringing, kids barging in, wives calling you, washing machines, all of these things are distraction. You might have just heard a little ding. Well, that's an email of mine coming in, okay? So that's a great example. The rule is this: if you can hear it, your microphone can hear it, okay? So if you go to Zoom and get a free version of their sign on for their free version, you can practice endlessly. You can send your friends opportunities to get on the other side and maybe ask you questions and practice your interviews so that you get more comfortable with the whole process, so you get more relaxed. And and you can, on Zoom, you just hit record and you'll get an opportunity to not only practice, but you get to see it play back, and you go, oh, gee, I stumbled there, or I used the wrong word, or I went, So this is a great opportunity for you to kind of hone your skills in this new environment called video interviewing. Okay. So now I'm going to depart a little bit from the technical and help you understand how to be the most impressive, if you will, in the interview process. So, days before the call, you want to make sure that you've gone through this whole job description. You want to look up the interviewer on LinkedIn. You want to see how long they've been at the company. You maybe have seen where they worked before. You may want to see what their hobbies and skills are. You may want to see what their educational basis is and how long they've been with the company. So this is just information to have kind of tucked away in a familiarity with the person who's going to call so that it's easier to relate. And then you can weave in all or some or tiny pieces of what you know just in conversation, okay? So you also want to look up who's on staff at the company that's going to interview you. This is important because you'll see if you go to LinkedIn and you just type in XYZ company and 15 people come up, you're going to see that there's some things in common. You're going to see kind of their cultural mix. You're going to see the age and stage mix. And it's simply good research. It's good information for you to get a sense of who it is that you'll be talking to and what company they're representing. So another trick I like to teach people is if you can find people who are no longer at that company. So XYZ company passed. So maybe they left a few years ago. These people, if you can reach out to them on LinkedIn, may have some great stories for you. They may say, I loved it, but I got a better opportunity and moved away. Or they might say, are you kidding? It was a madhouse and I'd never go back. So there's an opportunity for you to do a bit of research there. Also, going to glassdoor.com or .ca will give you some reviews of the company. Almost every company is in there. And it'll also give you some possible clues about salary as well. But so go on to Glassdoor. Let's just say for a second that you went and you found that there's 8 reviews and they're all pretty good. Well, somewhere in that conversation, they say, well, what do you know about the company? What do you know about us? Well, what I know is when I went to Glassdoor and tried to find some information on people who've been there and some opinions, frankly, all the opinions are really good. You know, people seem to like working there. People seem to think that the management team is smart. So that was encouraging for me. See how powerful that is? I mean, you just slide it into the conversation, but it's because you've made an effort and you've gone and you've looked them up. And now, if there was a few bad reviews, you want to be careful how you put that. But you may want to say, listen, there's a few people who said there was some problems, but it looks like it was a few years ago. Giving them the chance to say, oh yeah, well, we did run through a rough patch, but we fixed all that now. So it's just helpful information to have. Okay, so this slide's really about industry information. So lots of times the company that you're going to be interviewing with may not be one of your direct competitors or people in an industry you're tremendously familiar with. Do some homework. Put some effort into it. These moments of interview are precious moments for job hunters. This is a time where you may have sent out hundreds of resumes. Now somebody has picked you that they want to know more about you. You got to treat this as a great audition for a part you've been dreaming about if you're a dancer or an actor. This is an audition you want to do your very best. So putting in some effort and some thought and getting a sense of what good interview questions are. Look, at the internet's full of suggestions about what good questions and how to answer them. But you want to have 3 or 4 good questions in your pocket, okay? Just as an example, what do you think would happen in the first 60 or 90 days for somebody who's going to be successful in this business, in this job? And let them tell you what they think success looks like. Or what are the biggest challenges? Or is there a lot of travel? I'm not quite sure about how that goes. How much overnight travel is there? And so these are the kind of things that you want to get ready to ask if you get the opportunity, if there's a good place to put it in. Then you want to know yourself better. So you want to compare yourself to the job description, look for the things that you know that fit. And because I explained earlier, you could have a sheet, Word document or a document open right in front of you on the screen so that you don't forget important things that you thought you wanted to include. Okay? And so with that checklist, you can, just before you ever get out of the interview, you can have a quick look here at your checklist and say, you know what, I've covered it all, or I forgot to ask something, and then you get a chance to go and put it in. Okay? So now let's just talk a bit about the interview process itself. Okay? You want to make sure the lighting's right. You want to make sure the technical's right. Then, like 5 or 10 minutes before the call, just calm yourself. Relax. In a few minutes, you're going to have to do your audition and do your best dance. But right now, you just need to calm down. You need to get centered. You've done your homework. You're ready. You're probably a good fit for this job. We know you're anxious and you want to get it. But you have to calm your spirit because there's only one chance to make a first impression. And this is the first impression you're going to make on this company. So you want to be calm, prepared, interactive, cooperative, and all those things. And you want to be sure of yourself and of your skills and ready to talk about any part that they want to talk about. So it's a bit like a dance. If they want to go fast, you go fast. If you want to go slow, you go slow. So it's like you want to get this cadence going in the conversation, right? So I've made a note here that you cannot lose in this process. You're either going to get the job or you're going to get an opportunity to actual practice with other human beings who are in this business, and you're going to learn something about you or the process or what's going on. So you're either going to get the job, you're going to get a chance to learn something and get better at this craft called interviewing on the video. And remember, keep looking at the camera. You don't want to be doing this and you don't want to be doing this. A lot of people do this with me, right? Because they've got their notes down here. And so how does it feel? I mean, it feels like I'm disconnected, right? I think I'm trying to pay attention and make sure that I've got everything to say, but you've just lost me. Sorry, you've just lost my connection with me because I'm doing this. And so I'm trying to kind of give you the whole picture. And hopefully you can take away some parts of this and it'll help you where you feel you're stuck. So the formula for a successful interview has 2 elements. Listen and ask good questions. That's it. If you do those 2 things, you'll do a really good job in this interview or any other interview. Okay? And as a reminder, there's a few questions they can't ask you. Age and stage and religion and all kinds of things. And even if they do, don't get upset, don't get huffy. Just go, well, that's something that I prefer not to explain or not to share, if it's okay with you. But and you say, well, is there some reason you'd really need to know that? Because I'm a little uncomfortable. We're a little bit, in that gray area. So my last note here is this: don't ask them what happened to the last person. Okay. First of all, it might be their fault, and you don't want them to be embarrassed. So don't worry about that. You'll figure that out as you go. But that's a question you absolutely never want to ask. Just be professional. Okay. The second secret here is to listen. To listen. Most of the time when we're in a conversation, lots of us, instead of fully listening, are busy thinking about what we're going to say next or how we're going to respond. So our brain's going this way and our attention's off the speaker. And lots of times in simple little things that they say, it may give you clues as to what's going on. Okay, so like I've mentioned here, we've been looking to fill this position for a while. So then I wonder what's been missing in the people in the previous candidates. So for me to either ask right then, or to ask in a minute or two, say, well, you've seen a lot of people, and I'm sure that they have quite a wide variety of skills, but what's been missing? Because when they tell you what's been missing, you can start to go through your experience and your abilities and see if you've got any parts of that you might not have brought up, that you might not have mentioned. And it gives you a chance to get closer and closer to the bullseye. Okay, so when they say things like, well, we have an upcoming retirement, if it's a sales job and there's been a salesperson in this territory for a long time, there may be this big book of business that they've been building for a long time that I might inherit, which is a great opportunity. Or it may mean that that's going to go to the house and I got to go and build my own business in the neighborhood. So listening and kind of connecting the dots is a very useful skill in this process. Okay, so asking good questions. Remember, I suggested that you have 3 or 4. You want to have you want to be able to interject them in the process, but almost every interview ends with, "Well, Pat, it's been a good chat. Good to meet you. Do you have any more questions for us?" Well, I like to kind of save a little beauty for the end, kind of have something that I can pull out of my pocket and say, well, yeah, I did wonder, and then get into my final question. And when they're asking you questions, they're not saying, do you like skiing? Yes. Do you like boating? No. So they don't ask you yes or no questions. They've been trained to ask you open-ended questions. Well, you should do the same thing. When you're thinking about your 3 or 4 questions, don't make them so they can just say, oh, give you a number or give you an answer. You want a little story. You want to be pulling some things out of them, because then it feels like we are in relationship. Because as you are in the interview equals as you will be in the job. So if you're coming off as a know-it-all, smart guy, asking me a million questions, that's how you're going to be if I hire you. But if you're in this, hey, what can I know, or how can I help, or what could we do? If you're in this, we're in this together and I'd love to be part of the team feeling, then it's going to go a long way to their overall opinion. Okay? So think about how you ask the questions. Then when we're getting done, you're going to thank them for the opportunity. You're going to ask them for the next step in timing. The other thing that's really important here is you need to know. Hopefully they've given you an indicator. So if you were in person, they'd give you a card. They might give you might be able to find it at reception. But here you are sitting in your house doing this interview. So you want to find out before you get off this call how you would respond to them. Sending them an email, sending them a whatever. And even if you get stuck and you don't get it, you can always call back to the company and say, listen, I was just in an interview with Mr. Smith and I'd like to send him an email. What's his email address? And they'll often help you with the answer to that. But you want to ask them right up front and then send them a thank you message. Okay. Now, the last note is really important because this has happened over time, a few times. When you're finished, make certain the camera's off, the recordings are off, the computer is no longer connected to them before you say anything. Okay, like, thank God that's over. Making your eyes roll, and because you don't want anything recorded that is going to hurt you. You've come all this way and you don't want to drop the ball right by the finish line. So just make sure it's all turned off before you scratch your head and roll your eyes. Okay, so the follow-up's pretty simple. You want to send a thank you message. You want to send it as quickly as possible, the same day. You just want to say thank you for your time. I'm really interested in the role and I appreciate taking the time and I look forward to the next steps in the process. That's it, simple as that. So use whatever follow-up system you say. And when you ask them what's the timeline in the interview and they say, well, we should know in a week. Well, don't call them in a week. Call them in 8 days or 9 days or 10 days. Give them a little bit of gap on that. And even if they haven't called you back, it's not always bad news. It's just maybe other things have come up. But on the 9th or the 10th day, feel free to send them a follow-up. Say, hey, listen, we thought we might hear by now. Just wanted you to know I'm very interested in the role, and I'm looking forward to continue to be considered. Even if they've made a decision that you're really not the person, at least what you're doing is showing up professionally again, because you don't know what slowed it down. Okay? Don't follow up more than once or twice. Really. I mean, if you interview and you're a pack of 10 people and then they're going to go with somebody else and you just haven't had the time to call you and you've asked them what's up and they've not responded and you've asked them again what's up, please, they're not going to tell you. So just keep on moving. Don't worry about that part. Okay? So here we are at the end, right? It may seem like a lot of steps, but if you can just see how the process is the same as in person and how very different it is, then when you kind of put those two things together, you're going to do a much better job. These moments are more valuable than gold to the job hunter. These are those precious moments where you get a chance to do your best dance for the audition. So these are worth your time. These are worth your effort to get ready. These are worth your practice, if you will, to hone your skills. And because you're going to get 30 or 45 or maybe 60 minutes of an opportunity to be in touch with somebody who's going to be making a decision, and you always want to do your best job. You always want to, and then you win or you don't. Listen, this is more brutal than the Olympics. At least in the Olympics, they give you gold and silver and bronze medals. So you might know you're second best in the world or third best in the world. In job hunting, it's gold and everybody else goes home. You don't even know how you fared in the race lots of times. No feedback, no information, no coaching as to how you can get better. Nothing. Just gold and everybody else goes home. So I wanted to put this together to encourage you to do your best. Okay, your duty is to you, and you want to be looking out there for every possible opportunity that could fit you, and I hope that by following these guidelines that you're going to feel more prepared and more ready to do a good job. So, on behalf of myself and 911 for Job Hunters, I just wish you the very best of luck. Good hunting.